So without further ado, let's introduce our first speaker. So we have Lisa McClure, who is a user researcher within our user-centered design capability. Hi, Lisa.
Yeah.
Hi. So should we start off talking a little bit about user-centered design as a service? So what is user-centered design in a nutshell?
In a nutshell. Okay, so very simply, in a nutshell, user-centered design is really about putting, the user at the center of whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you're building, your service, your product. And it's a process of understanding what the users need so that you can build, you can test your product and service so that to make sure that it's going to help the user achieve the outcome that they want. It's about building in success from the very start, and in some respects, helping to keep, reduce costs or not spend resources and money building functionalities that are not going to deliver what the user needs, in a nutshell.
So why do you think it's become such a big part of software development then? Because it hasn't always been the case, has it?
No, but I think it is now, like I say, it's about, it brings value. You wouldn't want to build something without considering the user, because you could end up going off in all sorts of directions. And it's really part and parcel now. It's like, it's like breathing in oxygen. It's intrinsically linked.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the role that you do and how you ended up being in that role. So you're a user researcher. So what is that? What do you do?
So as a user researcher, I'm involved in usually the beginning, but throughout the process of user design. So in the beginning, I'm interested in doing user research with audiences with the user groups that are interested in using that product or service, and understanding what their needs are, and gathering those insights to bring to multidisciplinary teams who use that knowledge, who use those insights, content designers, business analysts, developers, all those individuals that are involved in creating that service or product. We use those insights to come together and design the service or product to meet those user needs.
Fantastic.
Simply.
So how did you come to get into this role? Was it the plan from the start?
Nope. It was a very convoluted, meandering path that I took. I studied illustration at university, and I left very ill prepared for the world of illustration, and I felt very much under pressure to choose a career path that was illustrative based, but I didn't feel like I had the expertise to do it. So eventually I ended up in the civil service. A friend of mine, her husband worked in the civil service, so she passed on an application. I worked in the civil service in comms and PR for several years. I wanted a way out of the civil service, but again, I didn't feel like I was trained for comms and PR in the private sector or in any other sector. But then I was made redundant, so that kind of decision was taken for me, and I ended up in a kind of 5-year wasteland of a career sort of thing. It was a very stressful time, but I did end up working in a lot of different industries and a lot of different jobs, until I think I was comfortably in my 30s before I got into this industry of user-centered design and user research and all that sort of thing. So very, very convoluted journey, not planned at all in any way. Yeah.
So did you ever have any moments where you were worried about where you would end up? Maybe at the points where you weren't too sure how a role would end up, or whether it was what you really wanted to do. How was that for you, and how did you overcome it?
Definitely. When I was made redundant from the civil service, I felt very untrained in anything, and I was very worried that I'd kind of sabotaged my career, and I should have stayed in the civil service and just, stayed where it was safe. So yeah, I was very concerned. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I did put a lot of time into my mental health and well-being. I watched a lot of TED Talks, and I went to you know, a lot of sort of events that helped me understand, you know, where possibilities were that I could go and really sort out those opportunities in the jobs that I had to seek out and improve my skill set and my knowledge, my understanding, and get experience in things that I wanted to get experience in. So it's about looking for the little things as I went on. So that went on for 5 years. It was not quick.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you kind of are in the place that you are, in the role that you're in, what would you say are the key successes and achievements that really stand out to you as part of this role in this industry?
I think the key successes really for me are some of the little things, you know, as a user researcher, bringing to a client a set of insights that really help them understand how, in some cases, detrimental some of the decisions, some of the business decisions are, some of the ways that products and services work, are counter to what the user needs and are really kind of affecting how successful the product or the service is for the business, but also you know, bringing insights that also, you know, reflect very well on the business as well, and you know, bringing some good news to people and saying, you know, that the customer, the audience really appreciates that, and also, you know, working with the people that I work with. They're really talented, lovely people. They're very, you know, as I say, very talented, and just want to do a really good job. And that's sometimes very rare in places where you work. And it's lovely to be surrounded by people who all share that same passion of user-centered design.
Okay, great. And so, and finally, just before we wrap up, so if you could sort of talk to your former self, maybe earlier in your career, is there any advice that you'd give yourself in hindsight?
Yeah, I think I would definitely go back. My dad had a certificate on his wall, frame certificate. It was beautiful. It was calligraphy, gold foil. It was beautiful. It was up on the wall for many years, and it celebrated 20 years long service for him, working for one company. And I think I expected to have that same kind of trajectory. I would become an expert in something, I would climb up the ladder, and when that wasn't working for me, I think that really had an impact. But I would definitely go back and explain to myself that that's not a problem, to not be an expert in one thing, but actually to be experienced in a number of things. Maybe it's not to expert level, but to have knowledge and awareness of different things, different skill sets, different experiences is actually really good, and really helps you to be flexible in the workplace, and move around and explore new things. And I think I would definitely go back and say, you know, don't beat yourself up about being a kind of a jack of all trades. It's not a problem.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lisa. So Lisa, you'll join us for the Q&A a little bit later on, but thank you very much.